So I'm back. I lost the first half. Maybe I'll try to splice it together. This is the Elite Acoustics StompMix X6 6-channel digital mixer with lithium battery and Bluetooth. Quick tour of the front. So you've got a headphone jack, 1/8 inch up there. You got your charging lights. This is a blue light when you're plugged in. This will show charge, and then when it's fully charged, this one over here will turn green. The second you unplug it and go on to battery power, it goes to 2, which means full, and then it goes down to 1, red when it gets low. I do not know what the percentage is on that yet. I haven't been able to test that out quite enough to know. So here's the main screen that comes up. You've got your main mix. Basically the way these buttons all correspond to whatever the menu is showing up there. These are called your encoder buttons. They work by turning and pushing. Then you've got 6 selector buttons over here. The main gives you the main mix, and there's various things on that. I'll go over that in a second. Aux is for your auxiliary functions, aux channel 5 and 6 out. Your system settings, chorus, delay, and reverb. You've got your main out with a mono switch, and then your aux level out. You got a red peak light button, and then a signal button. So right there, I got my guitar on right now, so I'm just hitting, and you can see that I got a good signal there. So the first thing I want to talk about that I really like on this, physically, it's a good-looking machine. As you've seen in the pictures, if you're looking at this on the acoustic guitar forum thread, it is a little bit bigger than the Boss. So, it's about as wide, but it's a little longer and it's a lot higher. I think the actual physical dimensions were like 10 inches wide by 8-9 inches long by 4.5 inches high. Weighs 6 pounds. It's not that heavy. It's very well made. Metal case, and the buttons are high quality. These are your scene buttons for selecting your different scenes. This is your mute switch. The scene buttons are not click type. This one is click, and it's a nice healthy click. Got a little antenna for Bluetooth and a Bluetooth button, so you can hook this up to a Bluetooth source. So I'm going to go over real quick. So the first thing I want to talk about is the system. So as you'll see, that's the first thing you see, which is the input levels. And I love this about, I'm going to just go ahead. This allows you to set the gain levels. So you basically dial in back here, as you saw from the photos above, your input gain levels. You just dial them up in the back, and you can see, you can set your input gain. So takes all the guesswork out of it, which I think is fantastic. You know, rather than deal with just peaking lights and whatnot, this actually gives you a level. They recommend going no higher than -12 dB to prevent clipping. I actually have it, you know, when I play really hard, you know, up around 6, and then if I really bang it, I'm still coming in under the red clip line up top. So that's just a real handy way I thought of doing that. Press again, and you can do different types of routing with MIDI, your aux and XLR, routing the signal in different ways. I have not experimented with that yet. Your XLR out EQ, you can set the EQ for the XLR out. And then this is your scenes. This is how you say. There's only 10, which seems kind of a small amount to me, but as I thought about it, you know, like when I used the Boss, I think I was up to about saving 20 different memory positions over there. And basically, you know, you kind of lose track of them if you have too many. 10 is more than enough for me for what I'm doing, so it's actually pretty good. And the way the scenes work is you have, it says memory, load, and save, and that corresponds to these 3 buttons here. So if I want to do a different memory, I memory 2, memory 3, memory 4, and then save. You have to kind of turn this button and the little arrow goes over until it hits the white thing, and then that saves it to that scene. So the first thing I did right out of the gate is I got a good tone with my X20 Emerald and saved it to scene. Actually saved all 10 scenes just to have something. And the reason I did this was I found out the hard way. I spent a good 15-20 minutes dialing in a tone, and then I tried to figure out how to save a scene. It wasn't obvious just by looking at this. And the second I switched the manual scene down here, I lost everything. So the manual is kind of basic. The system itself is very intuitive, but the manual doesn't really go into detail on how you save. Fortunately, it is relatively intuitive enough that I was able to figure it out after losing my settings a few times, but they could really spend a little more time and effort on that manual. I will say Elite Acoustics seems to be a small outfit, no tech support phone number. However, I've emailed them now a couple of times and they've come back each time pretty quickly. So once I got the scene saved, then the first one in. Basically, I spent a lot of time. I set up scenes 1 through 5 for the X20, and then 6 through 10 for the X7. And I spent a good amount of time getting a good tone, a decent tone for the X20. So I'll turn up my, might get a little loud here. So then once I had that, a good EQ that I liked on that, then I basically just went in and I added some chorus and I saved that to scene 2, and then eventually I'll add some reverb and or delay and save that to scene 3. That's kind of the way I had the Boss VE8 set up. I would get a good tone that I liked, and then I would just add different effects and save it as the adjacent memory or scene, as the Elite Acoustics calls it. So now I'm going to go back real quick to the main. So when you see main, the first thing that pops up is the main mix. So each one of these buttons corresponds to the 6 channels. So you've got channel 1, 2, 3, 4 have their own buttons, and then 5, 6 has a combo button. So you can change your individual output volume there. That's not a gain. The gain's in the back. That's just a way of bumping or dropping individual channels independent of the the main level output, which is basically your master. Press again, and it goes into channel 1 EQ. If I had pressed down here, it would have been channel 2 EQ. So you low cut, which is kind of like a high pass filter. Then you have low, mid frequency, and high. So that's pretty much the EQ, and I spent a good amount of time sweeping the mids, finding the best tone to cut out of that. This is almost universally, I arrive at this position for my style of playing with a K&K equipped guitar. I have to cut the lows, I have to really cut out the mids, and I have to boost the high. I play with my fingers. I don't play with a pick. If I played with a pick right now, it would be shrill. But I really need to cut the lows, dial out the mids, and boost the highs just a little bit. Over the past 4 or 5 years, as I've had many different guitar amplifiers, acoustic guitar amplifiers, almost without even trying, if I just sit there blind and start turning knobs when I find a good tone based on what I'm hearing, this is exactly what it looks like. A second press brings up the insert. Now this is where you do individual gain. As you can see, the gain is bumped way up on this, and the compression is up a little bit, and then the gate. This just kind of bumps the signal way up, and I find with a K and K on everything I need to bump up. This is the equivalent of basically putting a little K and K preamp on there. It really bumps that signal up well. Now in the manual, here's one of the issues I had. The manual has two other positions here for notch level and notch frequency, and it's not there. And I'm like, well, where the heck's the notch? I actually ended up emailing them. I'm not flipping you guys off. I just like using my middle finger. This is actually notch, although they don't call it notch. It's the utility, and it's V, dB, and V hertz, and that's your polarity switch for basically if you want to reverse polarity. So if you want to reverse polarity, you just turn here, and then these two buttons are for the notch. It's not really a notch. It's more of a variable high-pass filter, I found. If there's anything I'm not totally thrilled with on this, it's their version of a notch. I'm used to the notch like I have on the Boss VE8, where it's a single button and you just dial it around, and it's a pretty wide thing, and when you hit that frequency, it just drops right. This is more, you have to kind of bump the dB up until and then until you start to get the feedback, and then you go around with the hertz until you find the area it drops out, and then dial in the level from that. It works. I was able to dial out. For me, it's less about finding a feedback frequency and more about dialing out a mid-range honk. So I was able to get it to work. It's not, in my opinion, a classic notch. I had to email them to say, hey, where's the notch? Your manual shows it on screen too, and it's not there. And they came right back really quick. It's the next encoder press down. And so I said, oh, okay. And then I went in and started experimenting with that. So if there's anything I'm not thrilled with on this thing, it's their version of a notch. They did say that they are constantly, not constantly, but they add features, and as they change things, the manual does not always catch up to them. So I don't know. If you're going to change something and sell it to the public, update your manual. It's not rocket science. And then back to there. So, and then back to main. So if I wanted to go, like right now I have channel 4, which is my microphone. So there's my setups for that. And same thing, you can go in and do gain and compression and gate, and then notch as needed. So I didn't need to notch out anything on my vocals, and then back. So chorus, you hit the chorus button or the delay or reverb, and then it brings up your send. So chorus send. So now this tells me channel 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like, okay, where do you want to send your chorus to? How much you want to, and how much do you want to send? So if I wanted to dial in chorus, I would just dial this up, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. And then subsequent presses give you your chorus EQ. You can EQ it. Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button there. So you don't repress that one, you press this one. So you hit the chorus button again, it's your chorus parameter. What's the depth? And then, so that's all you get. You get the amount of chorus and the chorus parameter, which is depth. Now you've got delay. So you can dial modulation, the level, how much feedback, how many times you want it to hit, and then what the beats per minute are. So all these buttons correspond to those features. So you can play around with your delay. And then you can also route it. You can route it to a certain channel by turning that. I haven't played around with the delay at all yet. And then reverb. Reverb, again, how much you want on there, how much you want to send. Like right now you can see I've got a little bit of reverb on channel 4, which is my vocal mic. And then a subsequent press, you can say, how much delay, how much decay, and what the tone is for the reverb. I played around a little bit with it, and it's not bad. So, like if I go back to main and then hit chorus, let's see. So Now I'm going to go to channel 2, or scene 2. You can see that I have chorus dialed up on my scene 2. So basically when I'm playing, so there's scene 1. There's scene 2 with chorus. And then mute. So that's a really quick overview of this thing. I guess it's not really quick. It's 15 going on 16 minutes. I'm only a day and a half into it. I think it's going to be a keeper. It has an internal lithium battery. It's a little bit bigger than the Boss VE8. It doesn't have a harmony. It doesn't have a looper, but those are two features with the Boss that I had since stopped using. The problem with the Boss for us is it only had 2 inputs, basically a microphone, an XLR microphone, and a 1/4 inch for a guitar, which means that my microphone had to go into channel 2 of the Bose, and that was very limiting if we wanted to have somebody sit in with us, or we wanted to add another instrument or another microphone or whatever. So I'd been kind of looking for a digital mixer for a while that was relatively compact, very sturdy and very good sounding, and with an internal battery. And this is the first one I've seen. This is basically the same setup that you find on Elite Acoustics, the D6-8 amplifier, which a few people on AGF have used and really enjoy. So yeah, well made. It's pricey. It's about $600. Another thing that I wasn't thrilled with is it came with no sort of carrying case. Something that costs this much, and you know, to me personally, should have a nice fitted, you know, semi-rigid protective case for it for transport. That just makes no sense. They did say that they may or will likely add something that later that you can buy extra. So it's a small company. They're made in, you know, it's USA made, USA company. I think it'll serve as a good piece of equipment for a certain type of person. So someone who needs up to, you know, 4, 5, 6 channels in a small digital mixer. You know, we in our group, those of you who've followed us know, you know, I've got 2 Bose S1s now. I run off of battery completely. We use no external power on any gig we go to, regardless, which has been just wonderful. So this is the first mixer I found that gives us the EQ and effects that we need in a good-looking, you know, well-made and a well-functioning package. So worth the price. I guess that depends on your wallet. So anyhow, if you have any questions as I use this, I've got a gig. Not this weekend, the weekend after Mother's Day brunch, and I'll be using it then outside on the patio with one of the Bose S1s, and I'll be sure to report back then and let you all know how it functions. So until then, see you around on Acoustic Guitar Forum.